Good evening, friends. It's nice to have you all back with us. And today we've got a very, very special and very interesting guest to address us on a peculiar topic which none of us or most of us would not think is relevant, but something which our honorable speaker for the day would enlighten us and also give us a perspective on why macro variables are relevant for us to survive. Now, before I get into the topic and set the context, a few words about our speaker would go a long way. Uh, Dr. Ramesh Subramanian, as his name suggests, is a PhD in management studies. He's done his chartered public finance, a huge host of qualifications, including ACMA from UK. He's a fellow member of the Cost Accountants of India. He's done his master's in law. He's a fellow member of Company Secretary, a certified associate of Indian Institute of Bankers, and of course, a master's in commerce. I mean, a para full of qualifications indeed speaks volumes about you. So, and to give a perspective about his experience, he's an ex AGM of RBI, almost 24 years of central banking experience, worked across departments, someone who understands the Reserve Bank functioning far better than most. He was again in the senior management in City Union Bank, and subsequently moved on to IFMR Trust, was a professor of IFMR Trust for close to a decade, nearly 8 years, and then currently is a visiting faculty managing, handling diverse varieties of topic around finance and economics and strategy. Sir, it's indeed a pleasure for us to have you on board today, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And friends, to give you a perspective on the topic before I let the speaker take the panel, macroeconomic variables. Now, most of us, when we read financial newspapers or hear to people on various news channels, we would have seen people talking debt to GDP, public debt, RBI doing repo operations, monetary operations, or and suddenly you would see the markets going up and down as if whether there is a direct correlation, and we don't even know whether all these variables or numbers or statistics, as they call it, is even relevant or is going to have an impact. But the conversation with Dr. Ramesh some time back, he said this is something which every entrepreneur, and especially people who are in the finance field, should be aware of. And he volunteered to frame this topic to say, because the original conversation was to have a deeper understanding of the balance sheet of RBI, for which I personally reached out Dr. Ramesh, and he clarified it so beautifully well. And I thought it would be in everyone's interest to hear him out. And then he said, this would be a far better topic, Divakar, where I will also cover RBI wherever feasible. But from a public knowledge perspective and awareness perspective, knowing what macroeconomics variables and how they apply to us at the entity level is of very, very high relevance. So this was the background for the conceptualization of this topic. So now I leave it to you, sir, and we all are looking forward to you eagerly, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Divakar, for the nice introduction. And I thank TVS Research Foundation for giving me this opportunity to interact with so many members of this forum. Okay, so we start. Okay, my presentation will go on for almost say 45-50 minutes. Then take a pause, and then I'm open to questions, and then probably we'll after say 1 hour 15 minutes or so. Okay, so we start. Okay, this is what I'm going to show. Let me start this presentation. Okay, so yeah. Broadly, we'll be covering, say, the macroeconomic variables as the topic itself suggests, and then value creation, predictability, technology, strategy. I strongly believe in strategy. That too, it should be a blue ocean strategy. I'll explain. Most of you must be aware of what is the blue ocean strategy. Yes. As we go ahead, a couple of examples to make it relevant for our discussion, and then RBI balance sheet. I just touched it. Okay, I don't take a deep dive, slightly beyond the scope of this particular discussion. Maybe some other day we'll take a deep dive into RBI balance sheet and understand more about RBI balance sheet. And then ultimately, say as a cost accountant, as a ACMA, CGMA, I'll touch upon cost management. And most important, the subject which I'm very passionate about is about human behavior. Okay, once we understand the last one, human behavior, most of our business we will be able to do much better as entrepreneurs. Okay, this is what we are going to discuss. Say public finance. We don't take a deep dive into public finance. We'll just touch upon public finance because it's relevant since we'll be discussing RBA balance sheet, corporate finance, and then personal finance. Just to explain briefly, what is public finance? Basically, the finance of the government. Okay, public finance. Next is what corporate finance. We are all familiar with this, and all of you are working on this, right? Working in this, on this, with this, and on so on and so forth. And personal finance, of course, it's our own say savings and investments and so on, right? Even though these are three different say areas: public finance, corporate finance, and personal finance. All the three have an impact on each other. Okay, only to study to understand finance, we put them in different groups or silos, and then we try to understand. But we have to be at the back of our mind. We should know that all the three are related. Public finance depends on corporate finance. Corporate finance again depends on personal finance. Personal finance again depends on public finance, and so on and so on. All right. Next is, yeah, just one word I thought I should add. My presentation, it will appear as though these are all not connected. Okay, but be rest assured, each and every data point we are discussing, everything is connected and everything is relevant to our discussion. And end of this discussion, I am sure all of you will be able to appreciate as to what we went through in the last, say, 1 hour. Okay, cost, price, and value. Cost, the cost of production of a good or a service or whatever. And then price is the price at which entrepreneurs say sell it to the consumers. And then instead of say profit, I have brought in the word value. Okay, so value is more important for say us entrepreneurs, finance managers, finance bankers, and so on. Okay, we'll try to understand what this value is all about. Okay, you're familiar with this profit loss account. The first one, say on the credit side, we call this as revenue or sales. We call it top line. I'm using a management parlance here because management generally, say graduates, they don't accept say whatever economists say or say finance people say. They have got their own terminology. They say top line, and then there's something called as a bottom line, which is nothing but the net profit. Okay, so we'll revisit this profit loss account at a later stage. When we come to value creation, so what exactly is this value creation? We try to understand this. What has happened? Read this slide carefully. A tourist walks into a hotel in debt-ridden Kenya. You must have seen this. You must have already received a lot of WhatsApp say posts on like this, and then you must already read this. So what happens? Say the hotel owner takes a note and then he rushes to pay his debt, and then the butcher runs to pay the pig farmer. The pig farmer runs to pay the feed supplier, and supplier runs to pay the maid, and then because she has done some work on credit, and then maid then runs to pay the debt off to the hotel owner from whom she had borrowed, right? So now what happens? Hotel owner lays the $100 bill back on the counter. The tourist comes down and takes his money and leaves. He does not like the rooms. Okay, because in Kenya, generally, a person before taking a room, he is accustomed or habituated to go around and then see if he likes the room, he takes it or he doesn't take. In this case, he has not taken it. But what has happened? All have repaid the debt. Okay, no value has been created. I feel this is how most of the activity which is going on in this world is being done. No value creation. That is why at the end of the day, we blame ourselves that we have lost business, we are not able to come out of this problem, and so on and so forth. Right? The reason is very simple. We are not created value for our consumer. Okay. Then we come to this wonderful looking bird, zebra finch. Okay, what this bird has got to do with say macroeconomic variables, right? So we'll try to understand. What happens is experiment was conducted in US by a university, say University of California and say Santa Fe. So what they found out is that scientists who were doing this experiment, what they did, they could find out what the zebra finch bird is going to blutter or going to sing a song. Okay, whatever it is going to sing, they could predict this in about, say, before the bird sang. Okay, 30 milliseconds before the bird actually made a sound. Okay, so celebrations in many of the universities in US and those who had sponsored this, they are also extremely happy they had hit upon this new, say, brain-machine interface program. Okay, this was discovered. This was found out. Okay, this was reported by MIT Technology University. The sponsors include Elon Musk and then Zuckerberg and so on and so forth. Okay, so why were they happy? Why were they happy? Think about it. A couple of years back, when we were using Google, okay, we just used to receive a mail and then we used to respond. Okay, these days when you log on to Google, when you receive a mail, the mail, no, the moment you say dear, only it types dear Rama, Somu, and so on and so forth. And then before I say hello, then it prompts me as to what I have to write. Okay, imagine a situation. Okay, imagine a situation. Suppose I feel all of you must be in Facebook. In Facebook, what happens is, suppose you log on onto Facebook, future is going to be like this, more or less like this. When you log on to Facebook and then you want to type something, you want to express something. Imagine a situation whereby Facebook is going to prompt you, should I type? Or it would already typed, okay, it would already written what you want to write there, and then you have to say yes, and then it is posted. Okay, science seems to be science fiction, like Satya Nadella says, okay, but this could be reality. Okay, this is quite possible, and wait for a couple of years, this becomes a reality. As a matter of fact, I would like to share one small piece of information. I'm a CIMA qualified, as Divakar had mentioned. Okay, so CIMA from this year onwards, March onwards, Institute of Management of London, they have introduced exam from home. Okay, this exam from home is not like other exams. Here we have to use artificial intelligence. We have to download a particular software and then switch on our webcam and take this exam. Okay, and this webcam keeps a very close watch on us. It looks at, it reads our eyeball movement, our body language, everything. Okay, word by word, say it reads all our movements, and then the moment it feels that we are trying to copy, we are indulging in a malpractice, system will shut down automatically. Okay, the exam ends and then the student fails. Okay, this is a fabulous CIMA, say software CIMA is using, once again thanks to Microsoft. Okay, and when I checked with CIMA, they said more or less the same software is being used, say by Amazon and others in California and Seattle, whereby no people helps people get in and then say buy articles there. They can simply walk in, buy, pick up whatever they like, and then when they exit, their account is going to be debited. Okay, as a matter of fact, Amazon has even challenged people to come and hack. Okay, come and steal from their shops. Many people tried, but then they were caught. Then we come to an ideal and most preferred economy. Okay, economists say that these are the core data points which a country should have, say, to call it that it is an ideal economy. The first is core inflation should be less than 2%, and then favorable balance of payment, foreign exchange reserves to meet 1 year of imports, GDP growth at 4% and above, adequate liquidity, high domestic savings, good gross capital formation, higher consumer confidence rating, and ultimately political stability. Okay, many of the items, say data points, are put it in green. They're all favorable, even though the first one, core inflation, is slightly away these days. Okay, but otherwise, say once again, the ones with red, it is not favorable. The blue and say the violet one, violet, of course. Okay, today we have $500 billion, but still we do not know whether this will be sufficient for 1 year import, because the foreign exchange reserves, what we have is not reserves in the corporate sense. Okay, it is only loosely called reserves. These are all borrowings. Okay, borrowings, huge borrowings, say like FCNR deposits and so on and so forth. Some sort of FDI also is there these days. Okay, but then what we should remember at the back of our mind is that these should be repaid. It is not like the Chinese $3 trillion reserves, whereby it is excess of exports over imports. Here it is not excess of excess of exports or imports. It is all mostly borrowed funds. Then we come to the slack debate. What is the slack debate I'm talking about? It is the ideal capacity in a country. Okay, unemployed workers, idle factories. I'm not talking about the present situation, but generally, whenever there's a lot of offices, vacant offices, empty shops, stores, and so on and so forth, particularly workers and resources, we call it, economists call it as a slack. Okay, the slack, as long as slack is there, a country need not worry at all. It will bounce back. Okay, moment problems are all solved, the country will start galloping actually. But the problem is for those countries which does not have slack. Okay, if there is no slack, which the countries in say Europe and US are facing, there is no slack, it is going to be very difficult for those countries to gather or say progress economically. But India is in a very, very comfortable position, very enviable situation. Actually, we are doubly blessed. We have slack, a lot of idle capacity, and a lot of slackness also is there in this country. So we are very, very, very fortunate to have both slackness as well as slack. Okay, then we go to the rising growth.
So,
Yeah, this is something.
just yes, just in your earlier slide, since you mentioned about the $3 trillion debt of China,
Yeah.
I mean reserves of China, forex reserves of China. So now there is this constant accusation that Chinese state is subsidizing its industry by literally giving loans free of cost or on terms which are not very commercial.
Okay, I'll explain. Okay, see what happens is there is something called as public finance, okay, which I had just mentioned. Okay, what you have said is about corporate finance. So now let us imagine a country like, say, Japan. Okay, what is the rate of interest in Japan? What is it? Hardly 1%. Okay, if public, they have very smartly used public finance to bring down the debt, okay, their interest rate to 0.1%. Okay, why we can't do it? Where is our rate of interest? Our say risk-free rate of return when you use CAPM model, capital asset pricing model, our risk-free return is about 7%, one of the highest in the world. Okay. Still worse, what happens is our short-term interest rates are higher than the long-term interest rates. Very few countries in this world, okay, we call it at an inverted yield curve. Okay, this is something very in this country. Okay, short-term interest rate, normally speaking, it should be less, and long-term interest rate, because of the risk involved, it should be more. But India is a very peculiar country, whereby the long-term interest rates are lower and short-term interest rates are higher. Okay, thanks to the present governor, he has been doing a wonderful job. Underrated person, but then he's doing extremely well now. He introduced this concept of, say, Operation Twist. Okay, of course, learning from US. Then we are trying to correct this anomaly. We're trying to say make long-term interest rates higher and short-term interest lower. Okay, probably Operation some other day we'll be able to discuss. But then the short point I'm trying to convey is, as long as government is going to borrow at 7%, what will be the rate of interest for corporates? It is going to be high.
Higher than 7%.
That's the problem in this country. See, what Japan has done, why don't we learn from Japan? Why don't we use public finance and bring down this rate of interest, government rate, say debt rate of interest, to say 0.25%? Who's preventing them? Nobody is preventing them. Okay, so the problem is our own structure. Okay, our own say structural problems. You reduce that debt rate of interest, automatically it also comes down. Corporates also will gain. Nobody is going to blame you, but WTO cannot blame. Then, as I just mentioned, China is playing with this. China is not playing with this. They have understood economics properly. They are implementing it. Why we can't do it? What is our problem? Because we are not thought about. Okay, we just go to Japan and come back, but then we don't seem to have learned anything much, say, from this world. Okay, other economies. Okay, Diwakar, we'll proceed.
Yes, sir, please. Yes, and I'm also be getting questions on WhatsApp. So whenever it comes closer to the topic, I'll shoot them out. Sir.
Closer to what we are discussing at that moment, kindly raise it. Okay.
Yes.
Fine. Okay. So come to the global debt level. It's really galloping. 2019 International Finance Institute, say based out of France, they have given this figure $253 trillion. Okay. So and then say we are in 2020. There's a old figure. We are in say December 2019. 2020, we must already cross it, $275 trillion. What is going to happen is somebody has to bear the cost. Somebody has to bear, say, the loss which is going to be incurred, and then the non-debt repayment. Somebody is going to pay a heavy price for this. Okay, but then as a banker, as an ex-banker, what I would suggest is borrowing, and also you all will also agree. And as you're all say, this forum itself is the finance forum, and say a lot of non-banking finance companies are there. We all agree that debt is not a bad word, but what matters is how we are going to use this debt. Okay, if you're going to use the government is going to borrow a lot of money from Reserve Bank of India and use it for 3 years, subsidizing 3 years, fuel, fertilizer, food. Okay, subsidies and subsidies and subsidies and subsidies. When are we going to come out of this? Okay, is there any end to these subsidies? Okay, the day we resolve, okay, when we have got a political will and we come out of this and we really start thinking in terms of economics, okay, leaving politics alone, this country is going to be a very, very different country. Then we get into the serious topic of the day, say macroeconomic variables. There are two types of indicators, variables. One is, we call it as lead indicators. I'm a great fan of lead indicators. And there is also something called as lag indicators, which Divakar had already mentioned, something like GDP and so on and so forth. I'm not a great fan of lag indicators. I'm a great fan of, say, lead indicators. And let me explain what I mean by lead indicators. Okay. The first one is Thanksgiving. Any thoughts? Jugal is there by chance?
Yes, sir, but I think they can't talk on this.
Okay.
It's only with two of us. Okay.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll explain. See, Thanksgiving is very, very important. I classify it as a lead indicator. What is this Thanksgiving all about? Who's thanking whom? Basically, end of harvest season. Okay, people in the country. This is the ancient US. Okay, the natives. Okay, they say they are thanking God. They are thanking God for a good monsoon and a good harvest. Okay, so this happens every year in US, say the fourth Thursday of November. Okay, this year it falls on say 26th of November. Okay, this is very, very important for us. This is very, very, very important for us. Every year, US should have a great Thanksgiving Day. Okay, so because let me give the background. I was working in international banking division in City Union Bank. So there, what used to happen is we used to anxiously look for this day. Okay, because we are dealing with exports. Most of our say exporters from Tamil Nadu, we have got a say strong export from Tirupur in Tamil Nadu. Okay, so we finance lots and lots of entrepreneurs there. Okay, if they have to repay their interest and borrowings to our bank, this day should be a great day. Okay, if this is good, and then wonderful, we get our money back. Even we celebrate, say, Thanksgiving. Okay, so Thanksgiving is not there, not just in US, it's also there in China, Germany, Korea, Japan, Canada, Liberia, Netherlands, Ghana, name the country, there is Thanksgiving. And then very similar Thanksgiving we also have in India, we call it, say, the Pongal. Okay, in India also we have, in Punjab also we have, Assam we have, throughout our country also. And thanks to the monsoon, this year we are going to have a bumper harvest is what I read from the newspapers. Then we come to what is Black Friday. What is this Black Friday basically? It's actually we should not call it Black Friday. We should actually call it say a Green Friday. So, but then the books of accounts, those days they were all writing it in black and blue. Okay, so the businessmen. Okay, so whenever they incur a loss, okay, they used to write. The entries used to be written in say red. Even these days, say when you go to Gujarat and then say when you see the businessmen who are all maintaining the books manually, still you find say the red ink. Okay, red ink loss. Okay, so when this turns into say blue or black, it seems they make a profit. That's why we call it say Black Friday. And if that sale day also is good, say in US and throughout the world, India will also have a wonderful time. Okay? Banks in India, entrepreneurs in India will also have a great time. Then we come to purchasing managers index. So what is this index all about? It is an index taken from all purchasing managers in India. Okay, not all of them. Say selected, say 400 to 600, they select. Okay, what is the idea? What is the idea? Basically, the idea is to produce goods or service, to produce goods particularly, what you need is you need to place orders. What orders you need to place? You need to place orders with the raw material suppliers. Okay, so if I have made purchases, then I call it say a purchase having made. So having made the purchase, I give, okay, having placed the order, I give this information to Market Economics. Okay, there's a company called, say, a group called Market. They collect this information, and this, as per this PMI, any it's an index. Okay, any figure less than 50 means country is not doing well, or rather, this index indicates that not many purchases have been made during that month by the purchase managers. Anything above 50 is positive, and it's going to be great. Okay, but then these days, we all know, okay, it was above 51, 52, 53. As a matter of fact, it touched a record high of almost 55, and then clearly it has come down. Now it is around 30.8 because, say, thanks to the pandemic now. Okay, then we come to purchasing managers index services. This also is not doing all that well because most of the banks are all closed. Okay, software companies are just working, and so that's why probably we get a 12.6 figure. Okay, keep a watch as say finance professionals, entrepreneurs. We need to keep a very close watch on the days on which it is announced. August 3rd, okay, and today July 3rd, 5 p.m. they should announce. We are around 5:30, half an hour back. They must announce this. And then, as a matter of fact, say, a banker, say, we look for this information very eagerly. Okay, we look for this information very eagerly. As a matter of fact, many of us, we try to predict what the figure should be, because predictability is more important for us rather than, say, the age-old, say, information which is available in the public domain. And then we come to Baltic Freight Index and Harpex Index. What is this Baltic Freight Index? The first one is PMI. There, what happens? The purchasing manager has placed an order. Okay, having placed an order, what happens? The raw material should start moving. Okay, raw materials moves in open ships. Say iron ore, coal, and so on and so forth. No? Everything moves in open ship. Okay, for which there is an index called Baltic Freight Index. Look at this index now. June 30th, 1799. Whereas just before the crisis in 2008, it was 11,793. See the difference, 11,793, and now it is around 1799. As a matter of fact, last month it was still worse. 1799 is a better figure. Okay.
So, but what do we infer from this, sir? When there's such a big dip, what does this index basically reflect?
Orders are not being placed. More raw materials are not moving. Iron ore is not moving. Coal is not moving. Okay, nothing is moving. If at all it is moving, very, very minimal only. Okay, it has fallen drastically. Zoom. Okay, it was boom that time, 2008. Okay, the index, market index, stock market index throughout the world was very, very high. The whole world was doing very well. But then today, world is limping. World is limping just around, say, 1799. Then we come to the next index, which is called as Harpex. What is the Harpex? Having placed the orders, having manufactured the goods, bought the raw materials, and then manufactured the goods, the finished goods have to be transported from one place to another place. Okay, so finished goods, as we all know, it cannot be transported in open ships. It has to move only in containers. Okay, closed containers. We call it as Harpex index. Okay, there's an index which measures this containers. It is called as Harpex index. June 1st, when it took the figure, it was 440, 1,402 in 2008. So look at this. The graph straightly it is sloping down. Okay, April, May, June, it's down. Slowly it is trying to go up somewhere in the month of July. Okay, so we'll have to see how this improves. In other words, goods are being manufactured, but manufactured goods have to move. They are not started moving to the extent it was doing earlier. And then we come to VIX. This is also a very, very important index. Volatility index. It's also called as a fear index. Whenever investors are afraid, they don't enter the markets. So what happens is this index behaves in a very peculiar way. Okay, when the fear subsides, the index goes up because people start buying stocks. Okay, those entrepreneurs start taking risk, and then they enter the market. India VIX, it was around 28.17. Then we come to dollar index, a very, very important index, USDX. We call it USDX. So what is this all about? It is the strength of dollar vis-a-vis the major trading partners of US, starting from euro to ending with Swiss franc. If this index does well, we can be rest assured that US is doing well. And if the US is doing well, because almost 50% or 60% of the whole world trade is controlled by US, right? If US is doing well, I'm very sure. As a matter of fact, even say many countries also book say trade in dollar terms. So if dollar is doing well, probably the whole world is doing well. Then we come to commodities. These are also lead indicators. I classify them as lead indicators. Crude oil, and then copper, and then gold and aluminum. Okay, forget gold for a minute because most of you are familiar with gold. Okay, what is important for us to understand? Copper and aluminum. Okay, because what happens is these two items are used, particularly copper. Copper is an excellent indicator. It is used in industries, say in factories and so on and so forth, for producing a variety of goods. And copper production cannot be increased as we like. Okay, it is absolutely controlled. It takes time. There's a lot of lag in copper production. And if this price starts going up, we can be rest assured that a lot of things are happening in this world. Okay, I just given for comparison purpose what it is now, wow, 6016. Keep a watch on LME, the London Metal Exchange. Okay, it's very, very important that all entrepreneurs and finance people in particular, we understand London Metal Exchange and keep a close watch on what's going on in LME and MCX and so on and so forth. Whether you follow Indian stock market or not, or any stock market, keep a close watch on commodities. Oil prices, we are all very familiar with this. Oil is most important. We call it a strategic commodity. Okay, it's a very, very important commodity. So the price of oil goes up, that means probably the whole world is doing well. If the price comes down, probably the world is not doing well. Of course, we'll have to decipher the reasons behind it. But generally, it indicates that the world is doing well or it's not doing well. Banks, we'll skip this discussion. We'll not take a bank because it's very. Banks are not doing all that well today. So we just leave banks alone. Probably some other day. We come to lag indicators. We have just completed our discussion on lag indicators. Whatever lag indicators are indicated, it is only a sample. Okay, it is not a comprehensive list. There could be many more lead indicators. So take care. These are the important lead indicators. Is what I thought I should say. Okay, then we come to lag indicators. Yeah, you have a question?
No. I've got questions coming in, sir, but I think let's finish off lag indicators, then I'll come back, sir.
Yeah, lag indicators, some good news here and there. We get some good news. Sometime back, India became the 5th largest economy as per, IMF. And then what happened? Where are we? We are almost 5. It will be very nice for us to see the UK and France behind us. Okay. Then we come to GDP. Okay, we are familiar with GDP, but then there's a drawback in this GDP. What is not good about this GDP is there is a book. Okay, there's this person has written. This author goes on to say what is not really good about GDP is that it doesn't take into account the quality. Okay, supersized burgers, 9mm automatic rifles, school fees, everything is taken. Okay, anything which is moral and have got so many social dimensions, they are all disregarded. Okay, as a matter of fact, he goes on to say, he gives a story for us to understand, the story of Golden Arrow. If Arrow brews coffee herself and is served breakfast by her husband, or decides to homeschool her children, okay, this will give her a lot of happiness. Okay, but GDP of this country, if everybody is going to behave like Miss Golden Arrow, okay, then GDP of the nation is not going to go up. On the other hand, if she goes to Starbucks regularly and then her children go to a private school, and then after school they go she spends driving them around, and then for so many classes, music classes, and so on and so forth, and then she adds to GDP. Okay, if she is happily married, okay, she no GDP. But then if she files for a divorce and then if she goes to court and spends a lot of money, and the country, people say the country is doing extremely well, GDP has gone up. Okay, so these are the drawbacks of GDP. So we need to take care. Okay, so take care. Take whatever GDP figure comes. Okay, take it with a pinch of salt, if not a kilo of salt. Right? Then we come to external.
Sir, just a question, sir. Now, since you brought in this case for happiness and connecting that with GDP, the other day we had a chance to interact with the Prime Minister of Bhutan, where he was talking about Bhutan being the first country to have to prioritize gross national happiness index.
Correct.
Sir, any understanding, any study research you have done in that, sir? Gross national happiness.
Not done. The problem is with the happiness index. There is one small problem. Okay, the whole world should accept, particularly our big brother US should accept gross national happiness. Okay, because you have to compare. So when you have to compare one country with another country, you need index. Okay, so you need something to compare. If you are on the same page, happiness of course cannot be compared with GDP at all. Okay, but unless and until if all of us we move, okay, all of us, the whole world agrees to move to this new metric, okay, called happiness index, probably it will work. As a matter of fact, I'm told some of the Middle East countries and also African countries, they also are using gross national happiness. Because when I spoke to somebody in the Middle East, they told me, so we also have started using happiness index. Okay, so it is only a metric. It's only a metric.
Okay.
So it is a good thing. It's a good thing you mentioned. But because my program is very short for 1 hour, probably I thought I can't include it. Okay, so we go to the next part. External internal debt. You're familiar with this figure. Okay, there is actually a clock. Okay, national debt clock. This national clock has got several clocks in it. Population clock is there. So many clocks are there. You go and click, you get a figure. Almost every minute we are borrowing. Every second India is borrowing, and it's going up by leaps and bounds. Thanks to this borrowing, I get my pension regularly from Reserve Bank of India. Handsome salary from Reserve Bank of India. Okay, all of us are very extremely happy in Reserve Bank of India. Okay, because the moment the government stops borrowing, then Reserve Bank is going to be in big trouble because we do not have any other source of funds. Okay, our only source of fund is government borrowing. Okay, so because we are not allowed to do any other activity, okay, lending to the government is our main business. So then we come to another interesting point. $507 billion is India's foreign exchange, and this is a lifetime high in the recent past. We never imagined. Incidentally, Reserve Bank of India, this is not lead indicator and all. This is part of our discussion on macroeconomic variables. Reserve Bank of India got into an agreement, signed an agreement with, say, Government of India, saying that inflation target will be around 4%. Okay, so it's a very, very important, say, agreement with the government, because now Reserve Bank of India is duty bound to maintain inflation at 4%. Advantage for entrepreneurs, particularly international investors and also say local investors, is that whenever the investor is looking for a return, what he will say, he'll ask his consultant or he'll ask his finance manager to tell him, if I invest 10,000 rupees, what do you think I'll get? What is the rate of return I'm going to get? If inflation is this, inflation is say 4%, Reserve Bank says inflation, I'll maintain it at 4%, plus your risk premium of 2%, 3%, we can happily say that my return should be around 8%. Okay, so thanks to Governor Rajan, Dr. Ram Rajan, this agreement was signed, and more or less, Reserve Bank of India is able to maintain this target, even though there are say some slips here and there. Okay, then we come, and this agreement is only up to 20. This agreement is permanent, and then this particular target is only up to 31st March 21. Okay, then exports not at all encouraging, except few items it has gone down. CAD, it seems it's going to become positive, is what the finance minister says. But yes, this is once again an aberration, I should say. Once again, it's going to be a very, very temporary figure. Not that we have got great exports like China. Okay, so it's going to be a very, very temporary figure. Then we come to core industries data. What is this core industries data? It is those industries, about 8 industries, the government of India picks up. There is a ministry. I'll have to add one more point here. Whenever we are discussing lag indicators, what we should appreciate is, as far as India is concerned, there is no one authority which has been authorized by the government or by an act, enabled by an act, to collect and disseminate data. Okay, as many data as you want, you will get from different ministries in this country. Labor Ministry will say something, Reserve Bank of India will say something, Finance Ministry will say something, and ultimately everybody says something. But we need some data, so that is why we are discussing. Okay, so 23.4% is what core industries growth is what they say. Contraction. Okay, it has gone down. This month, the government of India has not released this data. IIP data is not there. Okay, thanks to the situation. Okay, but always wait. This core data, core industry data, will be released on the last day of the month or the first day of the next month. Okay,
but why is the government withholding, sir? Ultimately, it has to face facts.
Yeah, they have to, but they have excused themselves, saying this COVID-19 situation, they could not collect the data, because even if the data they're going to collect and disseminate, it is not going to be a very encouraging data. It's going to be a very, very ugly data. Okay, so one more point I would like to add is, India is a very peculiar country. Since I said there is no responsibility on anybody to collect and disseminate data, core industry will show negative growth. IIP will show positive growth. Sometimes core will show a positive growth and IIP will show a negative growth. Okay, this also is possible. Okay, so that is why I don't rely much on this, say, lag indicators. Leading indicators are sufficient for me to take decisions. Okay, then I come to WPI. We should be very, very cautiously observing this discussion from here onwards, because this has got something to do with the finance. Okay, WPI 3.21. CPI or retail inflation is say 5.1, even though agreement is there, say 4%. Somehow Reserve Bank of India has been managing. Okay, 4% plus or minus 2%. Either it can go to 6 or it can go to say 2. Okay, we come to fiscal discipline. I don't see any much fiscal discipline. I shouldn't say, but then this is what the statistics show. Say 2006, we agreed the entire revenue deficit will go away and so on and so forth. 2006, we could not do anything. 2008, we have not done anything. 2020 also, we are still struggling. Okay, 2020, about what you have said again in this budget, we said we'll maintain the GDP, say borrowings around 3.3%, fiscal deficit around 3.1%. Once again, we may have to excuse ourselves because the situation is bad. Government will go on to say end of the financial year, because of this COVID situation, we had to borrow lots of money. Okay. Once again, I would say borrowing is not a bad word. Borrowing is good. It all depends on how we are going to use this borrowing. Okay, then centers already borrowed 63% is what the news item says. We go faster. This is more.
Sir, no worries. Sir, since you were talking about borrowing is good.
Yeah.
So currently in India, we borrow to pay our interest, interest on loans at this point.
Right. That means what? Our cost is high and the profits are low. Okay, that means our pricing, something is wrong with our pricing strategy.
So either we say the pricing of the loans are higher, or our extent of borrowing is far higher than what
Say
it
the
should be.
pricing of loans is high by the lenders. I would only say the profits are not commensurate. As a matter of fact, I have seen situations, I have seen days, say in Reserve Bank of India, when the economy, when people used to, can you believe in India, Citibank, an MNC bank which is in Mount Road in Chennai, they used to pay 17% for the deposits. Okay,
17.
17. Okay, if Citibank pays 17%, then what rate they should be lending? Okay, and if they are lending at say 25% person, and then what is the profit the borrower was making? That means
Exactly.
those days the whole world was doing well, very well. Okay, the exports were all happening, countries were all doing extremely well. Okay, so these people could borrow even at 25 or 26% and still make a lot of money. Today, the situation is that the world is not doing well, or something is wrong with the strategy which I'm using. I'm not creating value for my consumer. If I create value for my consumer, I will not have any problem in selling my goods. If I see, what do you see in today? Okay, more of the same thing. I don't find any strategy at all being adopted by any corporate. Okay, very few corporates are there who understand strategy. Very few entrepreneurs are there who understand strategy. Okay, so I'll explain. I'll give you an example at a later stage. Okay, keep a watch on US. FOMC is very, very important for us. Okay, so this is what they decided. They have brought the interest rates to almost zero in the last FOMC, March FOMC. So next FOMC is going to happen in July. We need to keep a very close watch on what US is going to do. So is the case with Eurozone. Interest rates are all very near to zero. Okay, United Kingdom, as a matter of fact, there's also negative interest rate there, minus 0.50. Okay, and then United Kingdom. Here also we need to keep a watch. Next week, when is the meet, anticipate what these people are doing, particularly those entrepreneurs and organizations who have got exposure to these countries, exports and imports from these countries. We'll have to keep a very close watch on these countries. Japan, once again, not encouraging news, okay, coming from Japan. China, we skip China, okay, because all of us, we know with China, and it's an enviable country. All said and done, economically, it seems they are doing much better than the rest of the world. Okay, then we come to RBI balance sheet. I have taken an old balance sheet, 2018, 2019 is there. I'm not deliberately not taking it. This is sufficient for our discussion. So if you observe carefully, what happens is RBI prepares two balance sheets. One we call it as banking department balance sheet, and the other one we call it as issue department balance sheet. When I say issue department balance sheet, it is referring to the currency management or notes issue department. So what happens if you observe this figure? Okay, on the liability side, you've got notes. Okay, on the asset side, the gold standard days are gone, isn't it? These days we can't. Those days, if you had 100 rupees with you and you wanted, say, because if you read what is written in the 100 rupee note, okay, if you read, there is a promissory clause signed by the Governor, Reserve Bank of India. So what does the Governor say? I promise to pay the bearer a sum of rupees 100, 2000 or whatever is written in and then he signs it. Okay. So this promissory note, what happens if you take it to Reserve Bank of India and give it to the counter, in the counter there, the teller is supposed to give us gold. Had it been, say, in the 1940s, he would have given us gold. If you take 100 rupees and give it to him, and you will exchange it with gold. Okay, but these days, gold cost is so high, he will only show it from a distance. He will not even give it. Okay, he will not give it us. He will show it us from a distance for 100 rupees. Okay, now what I am trying to say is the gold standard is not there today. Okay, see the Bretton Woods twins, and then what happened those days. We're not going to the politics behind it. Why US came out of gold standard? Okay, probably another discussion some other day. But then what we need to understand is Reserve Bank of India today does not have 1:1 gold. If it is issuing 100 rupee note, it does not have 100 rupee worth of gold. But then what happens is it has substituted, instead of gold, it has substituted rupee coin and rupee notes. What is this rupee note? Rupee note is not Reserve Bank of India notes. Okay, we call it, say, currency notes. Internally, in Reserve Bank of India, we call rupees 2 onwards, 2, 5, 10, 20, and so on, as bank notes. These are not currency notes as far as Reserve Bank of India is concerned. These are all bank notes. Bank notes means Reserve Bank of India notes. When internally we talk about currency notes in Reserve Bank of India, we refer only to 1 rupee notes. Okay, 1 rupee note as far as Reserve Bank of India is concerned is a currency note, and all other notes are all bank notes. Okay, so why 1 rupee note is a government rupee note? Because it's a sovereign note. Okay, See, what happens is if there is a 20 rupee, if I give 20 rupees to somebody and the person has got a right to say, I will not accept 20 rupees, give me one, say, give me 5 rupees. Okay, give me 3 rupees or not 3 rupees, say 5 rupees or 10 rupees or whatever. But if I give him 1 rupee, he cannot refuse to accept that 1 rupee because he could be in trouble. This is the reason is that 1 rupee is a sovereign currency. Okay, it's a sovereign note issued by a fiat. Okay, nobody can refuse to accept 1 rupee. Okay, unless and until it is totally mutilated, that is different. But what I'm trying to say is that 1 rupee note is also a backing for the notes which are issued in Reserve Bank of India. That is 2 rupees and higher denomination. Okay. So now, if you observe this balance sheet carefully, apart from gold and rupee, there's one more very interesting item which has been appearing in the recent past. That is foreign exchange investments. Foreign investments. Okay, that is 366 is the number. Okay, what exactly is this? It is the amount of foreign exchange reserves which India has raised and it has invested abroad. So when you invest in dollars or some other currency, the advantage for you and me is that stability of the currency is assured. Okay, depreciation is less and the risk is less is what Reserve Bank of India feels, and that is why you have got huge say additions to foreign exchange notes which are maintained as backup to our Indian currency in India. Okay, so we skip all this. 2019, you can read. I'll share this PPT with you all. You can read on your phone. Then we come to application. This will be, say, give me 10 minutes. I'll wind up. Okay, so
sure, sir. No problem. Please, sir. Please.
Micro level institutions. See what happens when you apply these macroeconomic variables, particularly demand supply. Demand can be of two types. It could be a temporary demand. It could be a demand for a long term, or it could be a demand for a medium term. Entrepreneurs, businessmen, manufacturers, factory owners need to understand what sort of a demand it is. Is it permanent? If it is not permanent, I should be very circumspect. So Bhushan Steel, what happened? They started adding capacity. Okay, the London Metal Exchange price of say iron was almost around say $400 per ton. Okay, then it went to 600. They added one more factory, went to 900. Added factory, added factory, added factory. All of a sudden, after touching $1,700 per ton, it started falling and came to $200 per ton. Okay, many of them did not understand what happened. What would have happened? Because the demand was very temporary. Who was behind this demand? It was the Olympic Games. Okay, Summer Olympic Games. Okay, 2008 Olympic Games. Okay, this was not properly understood. Okay, they added factories. Banks are also very happy to lend. Okay, just look at the balance sheet, profit loss account. It is sufficient for them. Okay, bank is also company is making a lot of money. Give them more money. Give them more money. Give them more money. I feel bankers also probably they are not understood economics. Okay, I strongly feel finance people should also understand economics. Whether economics people understand finance or not, finance people should understand economics. Okay, so 2000 Olympic Games ended, and incidentally, this is a research paper which is written by Credit Agricole in France. Okay, they have released this report. Okay, you see the super cycle. Okay, super cycle it goes up, then falls drastically. Okay, so many corporates in our country world over they were caught because they don't understand economics properly, demand supply properly, and they were in trouble. Even today, this is the same problem. Okay, even today, I strongly feel demand supply has not been understood. Okay, probably when we touch the value chain, we'll discuss that. Okay, once again, we will see public finance, corporate finance, and public personal finance. All the three finance have got a link with each other. Next is cost, price, value. We have seen. Then we take a deep dive into this. Top line, bottom line. Also, we are familiar with this. So something efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, what is effective and what is efficiency? Being effective is about doing right things, while being efficient is about doing things right. Okay, a very simple definition. We come to efficiency and productivity. What is this efficiency and productivity? What animal is this? Efficiency. We generally call labor to be very efficient. And the number of labor hours required to accomplish a given task compared to the standard is less. Okay. A typical way of assessing labor is that the fellow takes, instead of taking 4 hours to produce a product or service, he takes only 3 hours. That means we call that extremely efficient labor. And standard costing, when you apply standard costing, labor efficiency we show as a positive. Okay, then efficiency is about, this is important for us, efficiency is about doing the same with less. Okay? Efficiency is about doing the same with less. Okay? That means what? You try to, efficiency is about shrinking the denominator inputs. Okay, doing the same thing, you produce the same output with lesser input. Then we come to productivity. So what is this productivity is all about? At the first glance, it appears to be the same, but then when you take a deep dive, try to understand what productivity is. It is typically measured by comparing the amount of goods and services produced with the inputs in production. Okay. In other words, productivity is about expanding the numerator or output. Productivity is about producing more with the same. Earlier, what we saw, efficiency is producing the same with less. Productivity is about producing more with the same. Okay, huge difference between productivity and efficiency. We need to understand entrepreneurs, businessmen, and then also say finance professionals. We need to understand when we need to use efficiency and when we need to use productivity. Efficiency is about doing the same thing with less. Productivity is about doing more with the same. One is input focused, the other one is output focused. Whichever way you look at it, you need to create value. Okay, if you create value, life is going to be very different. Okay, and you'll not have any problems at all. Okay, but also always remember, just because being productive does not mean that I'm totally engaged. Okay, just because I keep on doing some work, that doesn't mean I'm productive. Okay, productivity is a very different game, right? So we come to the last, almost to the last. Look at this carefully. Profit loss. CPI has got something to do with top line. WPI has got something to do with bottom line. Okay. When I say consumer price index, I'm referring to revenue, sales. When CPI is high, when CPI, retail inflation goes up, I'll be able to sell more. That means people's purchasing power has gone up. Okay. When I talk about bottom line, it is WPI because it is basically I'm B2B. Okay, that is B2C, isn't it? CPI is nothing but business to consumer. Here it is business to business. I buy from micro, small, medium enterprises and run my corporate. Okay, so that is about WPI with reference to bottom line. Productivity is about top line, improving the top line. Efficiency is improving the bottom line. Okay, large market, when the market is large, look at top line. When the market is small, focus on the bottom line. Okay, the same thing I have written. What all models you can use as a person who teaches strategy? What you can use? Porter's generic strategy, Igor Ansov, and also say Boston Consulting Matrix. It all depends. It all depends how we are going to use and what is the strategy we are going to follow. If you look at the India's corporate profit loss account in the last listed companies accounts, okay, a very interesting news item was there in the business line. So what it goes on to say, profit surge on a low base. If you look at the sales are not increasing. As a matter of fact, sometimes sales come down, but profits go up. Okay, from 4 to 44. Okay, 4 to 44. Sales are more in September 2018. Sales are zero in December 2019. But look at the profit, 4 to 44. That means what? Corporates are making money at the cost of micro, small, and medium enterprises. Okay, they are playing a very smart game. No increase in sales because they know people do not have buying power, so they are doing this. Okay, so we come to the.
So they're squeezing the suppliers.
Yeah.
Yes. No, when sales do not increase and profits go up.
Yeah. How it goes because of the corporate's efficiency. Okay, they are not looking at productivity.
Okay.
At efficiency. Okay.
Focus on efficiency down productivity. Get it.
Yeah. They're not looking at productivity. They're looking at efficiency, bringing down the cost. Okay. Then
get it.
Economics last part. Yeah. Kuroda's face. Okay. What happens is if you look at Kuroda's face, this is his face. Okay. Couple of researchers, they did research on his face. Okay, because basically all of us are human beings. We cannot hide our feelings. It is very difficult for us to hide whatever we think, whatever mind thinks. Immediately, our face will reflect. Okay, our face, particularly our eye, our eyes will reflect whatever our mind thinks. It is very difficult unless and until we are trained players. It will be very difficult for us to hide our our happiness or sadness or whatever. Right. So using this face 2 months ahead of Kuroda's Kuroda implemented the inverted yield curve. Okay, controlling the yield curve. Yield curve control was for the first time it was introduced in Japan. 2 months before he introduced it, these two researchers, only based on his face expression, they could capture, and 2 months before they announced he's going to take a drastic action. Okay, 6 to 7 weeks ahead of what he actually did, they could predict. Okay, predictability is very, very important. Even Reserve Bank of India, for information before the monetary policy is announced, keep a watch on what all these people talk. Go to Reserve Bank of India website. There you got say talk by governor, by deputy governor, executive director, and so on and so forth. There, no, they would have said so many things. Okay, speeches. Go to the speeches. There probably you'll get a hint of what is going to be done by them. Okay, they were hinted somewhere, including the so-called what all say activity we are seeing of the government of India today. Everything has got a background. Everything there are lead indicators. If I have not observed the lead indicator, then I have to blame myself, including the so-called demonetization or whatever. Had we observed carefully, we would have understood that some action is going to be taken by the government. Okay, so now actually this is a software which has been developed by Microsoft called Emotion API, and then screenshots of code of space was taken and analyzed. Okay, they are categorized into 8 categories, and then now they are preparing to say find out more of say the other central bankers. They're keeping a close watch on what all other central bankers are doing. Okay, keep a close watch. You can easily find out. Okay, my last slide. Suggestions from my side. We need to use strategy. As I had mentioned, not just strategy, but a blue ocean strategy. Okay, I'll give you one small example of what blue ocean strategy could be. All of us say we all lend money. Okay, we're all basically bankers, working in finance companies or own finance companies. So what we do, we will not lend a single naira per se to a person who's below 18 or above 60. Okay, what is the reason? 18 below 18 is not eligible for a job. Above 60, yes. What is the problem? Because we know that fellow has got no earning capacity. Okay, he cannot earn money. Okay, so now if I adopt a blue ocean strategy, if I'm a banker, okay, if I adopt a blue ocean strategy, what I'll do, I will lend only to people above 60. Okay, I will say below 60, you go to a bank. Above 60, you please come to me. Okay, this is a new type of bank, okay, which believes in blue ocean strategy, and I take the responsibility to create livelihood. I take the responsibility to create cash flow from a borrower who's 60 years and above. Okay, so I don't find many takers on this, but I can share my experience in IFMR much later when on some other occasion. But if you follow a blue ocean strategy, or even forget blue ocean strategy, if you look at the way in which the bank application form you fill up for a loan, okay, so what is that we are filling up, or even say a deposit? What we are writing, we are starting with a name and then ending with a signature in the second page, saying what all I have said above is true. Okay, suppose I have said false somewhere. Is there any way to correct it? Okay, so I strongly feel we should start with a declaration on the top. What all I'm going to say from now onwards is true, is nothing but true, something like a quote scene. Okay, so you take the signature in the beginning so that person will have it in his mind that he should not lie. Okay, but what is the point in taking the signature in the end? Some banker has started this practice, everybody does this, that's all. Okay, more of the same, and they don't seem to think differently. Okay, then I come to R&D, research and development. I do not know how many banks or how many financial institutions have got research and development. I strongly feel there should be R&D. R&D should be, need not be restricted to pharma companies or automobile companies alone. It's the finance companies which need this much more than anybody else. Okay, then innovation, I don't see any innovation except say Bajaj Finance. I see innovation only in Bajaj Finance. Okay, a lot of innovations they do, but I don't find any innovation, much more of the same. I see gold loans, well loans, or whatever loans, more of the same thing. Okay, value chain supply, most of the financiers are not understood. They are at the wrong end of the supply chain. They do not know where the risk is and where the return is. Okay, they don't know how to play the supply chain. They're totally ignorant of supply chain finance. I thought we all should understand supply chain and then understand where the risk is and where the return is. Okay, and then we do not have any supply chain leaders also in our country, unlike say Toyota Motor Corporation or any other say automobile company which takes the lead to lead the supply chain, okay, or value chain. Next is say demand supply mismatch, as I said. Excess production, either there could be excess production or could be a shortage of production. Okay, these are the only things which I see around. Okay, so it doesn't match at all, right? So a lot of reasons for that. Probably on some other occasion we'll discuss what exactly is this demand supply mismatch and how it can be avoided. Then statistical tools and say technology is what I would strongly suggest we need to use. Technology, I can have another 3-hour session only on technology, what all technology bank can use. Okay, or banks or financial institutions can use. Okay, a very simple technology which say in banks in Indonesia are using something called as geospatial technology. India, we have not even heard of geospatial technology. Okay, we are a $5 trillion economic, great. It's a small country like Indonesia, they are using geospatial, but we are nowhere near geospatial. Okay, we have a lot of satellites. We do launch a lot of satellites, but all these satellites, what we do know, we use these satellites for watching movies, listening to news, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's the only purpose of satellite. I don't find any great application of say satellite in our country. Okay, next is productivity and efficiency. I have already discussed, and then ultimately value chain, value creation. I strongly feel I believe in creation of value. If I create value, my customer is going to be with me for a very, very long time. Even if I close down, he's not going to leave me. But if I don't create value, if I'm going to do more of the same thing, my customer will not be there with me forever. Okay, so this is my say understanding. We need to create value for our customers.
Done. Fantastic, sir. Fantastic.
Okay.
Nice. So now do we get to the thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. I mean, it's been an amazing roundup of. I think you've covered too many relevant concepts, and we just had. Unfortunately, the time of 1 hour was very less. I think just to go through the slides, we would have had more than an hour and a half. But now let's quickly get to the question answers, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Now, so if I were to understand the flow correctly, all these data like CPI, WPI have a very tangible impact on even a small micro or a medium enterprise.
Right.
How we interpret, how we set the system to make it a habit to interpret these numbers is extremely critical for the business to be successful.
Yeah. What I would strongly suggest is economics is a starting point. All of us, if we are entrepreneurs, if we are in the finance, we need to understand economics. Economics is the basic. What I have just discussed is nothing great. It's not Adam Smith or Ricardo economics. I have discussed something very basic and very fundamental. Unfortunately, in our country, a person who studies economics, BA economics or MA economics, does not get a job also in this country. Okay, economics is even the lowest possible say grade. Okay, the students don't opt for economics because the problem is not with economics. The problem is the people who teach economics, they don't teach the application of economics. Okay.
True, very true. I agree with you. Correct.
Very, very exciting subject. Okay, if you understand economics, basic economics, this country is going to be very different. Okay, not new to this country. We have a history of economics, right? Say Chanakya, if you read say Arthashastra and all, so much of economics is written in that. As a matter of fact, some of the Upanishads, if you read, okay, say Mundaka Upanishad and so on and so forth, there you have got a lot of economics written there. But unfortunately, we have moved away from all that, and then today we are focused only on getting a job. My first priority is get a job. Okay, if I don't get a job, then what happens? See, I have a driver here. Okay, I have a driver. Okay, so what this fellow does, he did not get a job. Then what is it? No, immediately he started one grocery shop. Then I asked, what is your experience? What is your skill set? Why are you starting a grocery shop? He spent about 5 lakh rupees and started. Okay, within 3 months he closed. Okay, now again he's back to say instead of driving a car, now he's cleaning a car. Okay, what I'm saying is they don't understand the skill sets. See, it is a challenge to run a grocery shop. It is not easy. It is not easy. He never understood how to run.
So economists are not being respected in our country at any
completely. I would not blame economists. I'm not economics. The people who are teaching economics, they don't teach the application of economics.
Very true. I agree with you. Very, very true. So let's move on. So some of the questions I would like to pick up. I've got quite a few, both on the WhatsApp and here.
Yeah.
One is about what are your thoughts?
You can even note down all these questions. In case today I'm not able to answer, I will be very glad to reply through email. Every question I would
certainly.
Okay. Yeah.
So on the stimulus package of US, which is almost 10% of GDP, today everyone is happy because the people are getting money, the industry is optimistic, but in future this money has to be repaid by the government.
Yes.
So where do you see is going to be the consequence of this move in 2 to 3 years time, sir?
No, there are only two possibilities. As I said, somebody has to bear the cost. 2008,
yes.
The cost was heavy. A few countries had to bear the cost. A few financial institutions had to close down. Okay, there are only two possibilities. Either somebody pays the price, a few financial institutions will go down. Okay, or alternatively, US will give lots and lots of time, which they have promised. Okay, which they have promised. They said till 2021 or even 2022 as the dot map. No, one nice thing about US FOMC is US Federal Reserve is that they give a dot map. Okay, they say that we will not do this till 2022. Okay, you don't have to worry about 2022 at all. That's a very nice thing by say, particularly for entrepreneurs and businessmen. There is clarity in what going forward, what is going to be done by the US government. But India, the problem is we do not know what will happen tomorrow. This is the problem in our country. Okay, entrepreneurs and businessmen, they always have to guess what the government will do. No clarity, no roadmap. They don't say what is going to
So
happen.
here you see now this cost of this 10% GDP. So now 3 years down the line, how do you see US absorbing this cost?
Why not? Why not? If you say the economy recovers, US will lead the world once again. What?
Okay.
Yeah, now they are not doing well. The job losses are there. If they start doing well, US is going to lead this country, lead this whole world, not just say US people. US is going to be better off. If they are going to do well, the whole world is going to do well.
Interesting. So coming back, sir, the same which issue which you mentioned about India. Another question is about now in India, the focus has been to maintain the fiscal deficit target on for compromise growth in the bargain.
Yeah.
Now, there are mixed views whether the government is appropriate or in doing this or otherwise.
No, I didn't get.
And in the earlier governments, they were
Yeah, please come again.
no, like US, where they opened up the purse strings and 10% of the GDP was given as stimulus.
Yeah.
In India, we are not taking a stance like that. Even though Prime Minister said it's 20 lakh crore, the effective stimulus is about 1.5%, not more than that of the GDP.
At the ground level, because so many mathematical calculations they do, and ultimately you and I benefit only say 1 lakh crore or 2 lakh crore. Correct, true. Right.
Yes, not more than 1% thereabouts. So now here, and the fear in India is the rating agencies could downgrade us, or the fiscal deficit target could be like overshot by a significant number.
Right.
Is it appropriate to hold on to fiscal deficit vis-a-vis your growth?
Once again, in this case, I will go with Dr. Gurmurthy. Okay, so what I would suggest is borrowing is not it's not a taboo at all. Nothing wrong in borrowing. Okay, you can exceed. You cross even 5% of GDP. I have no problem. But what are you going to do with that 5%?
True.
What are you going to do with that 5%? If you are going to use it only for food, fertilizer, and say fuel subsidy, downgrade is certain. Okay, but if you're going to construct world-class infrastructure, whereby my businessmen are going to flourish, okay, say Chennai, Bangalore corridor, industrial corridor, okay, if they set up that, okay, or say Bangalore, or say Bombay, Delhi industrial corridor, okay, providing lakhs, and as a matter of fact, one of the reports, I think it is KPMG report says the need for India in the next 4 or 5 years is about we need 50 lakh finance professionals. Okay, 50 lakhs finance professionals alone. Okay, if 50 lakhs finance professionals are required, then think about engineers and so on and so forth. Okay, it is going to be 5 or 7 times more than that. Okay, so what I would say is, if you use this money wisely, India is going to be a very different country. If you are going to repeat the same mistake what we have been doing earlier, once again, I have no answer for that.
Okay, get it. So now, when it comes to the numbers, there is always this criticism in India that the National Statistical Office is not very reliable.
Right.
So, what extent, and of course, though I'm not a student of economics, I'm just beginning to learn. Most of these numbers are estimates or surveys, extrapolation of very small amounts of data. So in this backdrop, sir, in India, and India has a significant lacuna in collection of data, because even the data.gov.in, which the government has,
Right.
the data sets are really old. Some of them are more than a decade old. So to what extent the data avail, and the National Economic Survey says data is a new oil, and we want to push data sets available free.
Correct.
I mean, to what extent is the numbers which come out of India are even reliable for a sane decision making?
Your guess is as good as mine. Okay, so what happens? I'll share a joke with you. See what happens. A person was traveling in a train. Okay, so he had a timetable. And this train, in every railway, every station, it was about 10 minutes late, 20 minutes late, half an hour late. He was so annoyed. He called the ticket collector and told the ticket collector, "See, look at this. What is the train you're running? Every station it is late by half an hour, 45 minutes." Then the ticket examiner told him, "Right, sir, since you have a timetable, you're saying that my train is running late. What if there is no timetable at all?" complaint. So that way, what happens is today we are getting some data we are getting. Okay, we are getting some data. But I would suggest a simple Google search will give you Dr. Rangarajan committee recommendation. Somewhere in the 90s, no, he had submitted a wonderful report that there should be a statistical authority in this country. He strongly advocated there should be a statistical authority, and that fellow should take responsibility in collecting and dissemination of data. Government has conveniently put it in the dustbin. Okay, whichever government, okay, they're not bothered to read that report further because it will be inconvenient for them. Perhaps this is the time they should start looking at those old reports. Okay, wonderful report written by Dr. Rangarajan. So, retrieve that report, read that report, what that great gentleman has said. Okay, try to implement at least 10% of what he has said. India will be a different country. We have great economy, but unfortunately, decisions are all political and decisions are not economics. It's not based on economics or even finance. It's high time.
Okay. No, get it, sir.
Statistical authority for this country. We have got a lot of authority. RERA is there. So many authorities are there. One more authority, statistical authority. It should be 100%. I agree.
Get it. So I think we can go on and on, sir. I've got another 8 questions here, which I would suggest I'll mail it across since we're already at 6:15.
Sure.
Way past our time. Sir, it's indeed a pleasure interacting, sir, and I'm sure we catch up once again on another occasion where we can discuss in most of the ideas what you've given have made us think. And as entrepreneurs, I think the case for is not, I wouldn't even use the word popular, not even in the realm of possibility for most of us here. And thanks for enlightening us on this very interesting and innovative concept as you could put it across. And we really look forward to hearing you again.
Sure.
On a different note, do you also consult companies to get their strategies in place?
I do. That's why, those 3 strategies they said, Igor, Ansoff, and then say my Porter's generic, as well as other strategies. I do consult on strategies.
Okay. So and you bring your economic dimension to the strategy.
My economic dimension and also my performance management dimension, because unless and until you measure, okay, what has been performed, you will not be able to reward the person. Okay, so it is I'll tell you one very small example to wind up our discussion on performance management. See what happens in a corporate, they fixed for the sales representatives, fixed a target of say revenue. Okay, so all there were about 25 representatives and they achieved the revenue. Okay, but then the managing director was very annoyed. So he said, okay, you fellows are all achieved 100 crore turnover, but look at the net profit, it is hardly 1 crore. Okay, so but then the sales representative went on to say, you fix us revenue target, we achieved it. Okay, so what probably the managing director should have done is fix a revenue target and also fix a net profit target. They say, yes, subject to this, you do this. Okay, so what exactly happened in this case is, instead of selling the products for 100 rupees, they sold it for 50 rupees. Okay, the sales zoomed. Okay, sales went up very high. But then what is the use of the company? Sales went up. Okay, production went up. People got jobs. But then company lost money. Okay, so this is the story of this company because they did not understand what performance management is. They should have probably fixed the target. Yes, sales plus net profit. Okay, unfortunately they forgot that and then they lost money.
Get it. Interesting. Very interesting. I think this is another information of relevance to all of us. Sir, thanks a ton once again. And I'm sure we should be in touch to take things forward. So thanks a lot.
We'll do. Okay, thank you so much for inviting me, and nice to see so many finance professionals and entrepreneurs participating in our seminar. So we meet once again. Okay,
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.